Welcome to the first horror Blu-ray update. Just ignore what I'm doing here, and the show will continue here in just a few seconds. Good evening. It is a pleasure to have you with me again. It is a well-known fact that some people prefer the convenience of online video streaming, while others like myself prefer physical media. Tonight, I'm going to take you on a journey. We're going to be talking about the new Blu-rays that I have recently purchased. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and hopefully you'll subscribe. This is a really terrible Rod Serling impersonation. Thank you again for joining me. Welcome to yet another episode of Around the Clock Frights. I'm Josh, and a couple weeks ago, I actually released a video talking about my complete horror Blu-ray collection. I had a ton of fun making that video, and I got to share some really exciting titles with you guys. Well, it's been a few weeks, and I thought I would keep you guys updated as far as some of the new purchases I've made. Now, I bought most of these used. There's actually a local used record store chain called Z Records, and I purchased most of my Blu-rays there. A couple of them I got at Walmart, but I would love to talk about them briefly here today. And I'm going to go in alphabetical order here. Also, if you have any suggestions as far as Blu-rays that I should get in the future, please let me know, because I'm always looking, I'm always hunting for new titles. But starting with Alien vs. Predator, the unrated 2-pack. Now, I'm not going to lie, the only reason that I have these movies is because I'm a bit of a completionist. I have the rest of the Alien saga with me, but these two movies I'm not really the biggest fan of. I actually just watched Aliens vs. Predator Requiem for the first time, and to quote Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, that is one big pile of shit. The first Alien vs. Predator was competently made, surprising since it was made by Paul W.S. Anderson, and I respected the fact that it decided to incorporate some enjoyable action sequences in its runtime. But Aliens vs. Predator Requiem, my god, so much of the film is so dark and dank, and you can barely make out what's going on. I mean, it's literally like looking at a black wall. It's a really terrible sequel. But that's my first purchase of the evening. The second is Creepshow 2. Obviously not as good as the first Creepshow, but there are some enjoyable, gruesome tales of horror in Creepshow 2. They're all adapted from Stephen King's short stories, my favorite being The Raft, which is about these college students who encounter this man eating oil slick out on this lake. The short story that The Raft is adapted from is nerve-wracking. The way that King goes into great detail about these kids' deaths is just very sickening, and it's a really creepy short story. The Raft is the best installment in Creepshow 2. There's only 3 stories this time, as opposed to the 5 stories that were featured in the first Creepshow, but it's a decent sequel. I mean, it's not really anything special, but it's a million times better than Creepshow 3. Creepshow 3 is like a huge bucket of dog turds that should just be thrown out into the wilderness and never touched again. I despise Creepshow 3. Creepshow 2, not bad. All right, you're going to have some questions here, but I also got the 2009 remake of Friday the 13th. Now, this is one of the better Platinum Dunes horror remakes. It's certainly better than the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even though they're both directed by Marcus Nispel. I found Friday the 13th 2009 to be, somewhat enjoyable. They do some new things regarding Jason Voorhees as a character. He actually has these underground tunnels that he is able to navigate through. And there are actually some surprises in this one. One of the female leads does get axed off, later on in the film, which I certainly wasn't expecting. And, Jason is just big and monstrous in this movie, which he should be. I mean, he's Jason Voorhees. So, not necessarily a good remake, but I like it better than some of the other abysmal horror remakes out there. We'll save this one for last. Next, we have Grindhouse, a collaboration between Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. Planet Terror is an enjoyably schlocky throwback to those drive-in, exploitation sci-fi features. Like, I mean, it features a woman who has her leg blown off and she replaces it with a machine gun. I mean, it's just pure schlock, but it's highly, highly entertaining. There's also a number of fake trailers in Grindhouse that are also enjoyable as well. My favorite being the one directed by Eli Roth. Can you believe that? I'm actually not usually that big of an Eli Roth fan, but he made this fake slasher trailer called Thanksgiving, and just the narration in that fake trailer is hysterical. That deep, like, this holiday season, you will come home in a body bag. White meat, dark meat, all will be carved. It's actually really funny. And Death Proof, directed by Quentin Tarantino, it's probably one of his lesser efforts, but I like the fact that the killer in Death Proof uses a car to murder people. Kurt Russell plays a stuntman who is very attached to his car, and he uses it to off his victims. And it also features a gang of kick-ass female leads. Quentin Tarantino usually includes badass female leads in his movies, but I really enjoyed Grindhouse. It's a really fun time at the movies. All right, moving on, we have both adaptations of Stephen King's Pet Sematary. I actually just finished reading the Pet Sematary novel recently, and while both of these adaptations are good in their own right, I will say that I prefer the 2019 version a little bit more. Even though the ending is completely different than it is in the novel, it just makes more sense to me story-wise. If you've seen the 2019 remake, I personally think it makes more sense for the daughter to come back to life, as a corpse. I mean, she was the one asking questions about death. She was the one scared of death. So I thought they made some good changes in the remake. The original does feature an iconic performance by Fred Gwynne, I believe his name is. He plays the elderly neighbor, Judd Crandall, and he just nailed that character. Like, the way he comes off as the surrogate grandfather to the Creed family, Fred Gwynne was excellent. But I enjoy both versions. A Quiet Place, directed by Jim from The Office. I've made that joke many, many times. Now, this is actually getting a sequel later this year. Don't hate me, but I do find A Quiet Place to be a little overrated, and part of that has to do with the fact that I don't find the monsters in this movie to be particularly frightening. I think they look like your generic Cloverfield monster clones. I don't find them very scary, although this movie does feature some very effective sequences. My favorite being the moments where Emily Blunt is about to give birth, and she is sitting inside a bathtub trying not to make a noise because there's a monster in the house with her. And I wouldn't call this a masterpiece, but it does have some good scares in it. And it does have a very clever concept. I love the idea that you literally cannot make a sound or else these monsters will come and devour you alive. So I'm looking forward to the sequel. I still think it's a good, solid film. Hey, M. Night Shyamalan, you actually returned to the mainstream and delivered a good movie, Split. Glass was a bit of a disappointment, but Split, this is the role of James McAvoy's entire career. He is astounding in Split. He essentially plays this individual who has 23 personalities inside his mind, and some people have said that I resemble James McAvoy at the beginning of this movie, like when he's inside the car with those teenage girls. Like, do I really? I don't see it myself, but the cinematography in Split is also very atmospheric and unnerving. It was shot by the same man who did It Follows, and there are just so many wide, gorgeous shots, so many long takes down empty hallways, and the atmosphere in Split is just terrific. And M. Night Shyamalan, I'm glad that you're making smaller budgeted movies again, but please just go back to writing clever thrillers like this. Stay away from bigger efforts like Glass. Glass it wasn't terrible, but it could have been so much better. There were just so many choices in Glass that were baffling, and just, God, they made my head... Watching Glass, it felt like my head was splitting open. But Split, one of the better Shyamalan films in recent years, for sure. It's definitely better than The Last Airbender, which is just an utter travesty. Second to last film here, we have Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Tucker and Dale versus Evil is one of the funniest films I've seen in a long, long time. It's about these two redneck men who are mistaken for serial killers by this group of obnoxious college students. And, we get to see these college students attempt to murder these rednecks because, they think they're the killers. And there's one sequence in particular that is just side-splitting. It has me in stitches every single time I watch it. The setup is that Alan Tudyk's character is using a wood chipper. He's throwing some wood into the wood chipper. This college student wants to get the drop on him. So he runs at him with a knife in hand, and he lunges at Alan Tudyk, but at the last second, Alan Tudyk moves out of the way, and the college student accidentally lands inside this wood chipper and just gets shredded alive. And I'm busting a gut thinking about it. Please check out Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I understand it's more of a comedy than an all-out horror film, but I love this movie. I love it with all of my heart. It deserves more attention. Please, please check it out. Last, but certainly not least, we have the much-anticipated sequel to Zombieland, Zombieland Double Tap. Now, I've already talked about this film in other videos. We actually did a review for Zombieland Double Tap, but I just thought this movie was bloody enjoyable. It features quite possibly the best Bill Murray cameo ever. If you haven't seen the film, I won't spoil it here, but the cast, their chemistry is tremendous once again. Jesse Eisenberg plays his usual neurotic self. Abigail Breslin has definitely grown since the last time we saw her. Woody Harrelson and Emma Stone are also very fun to watch. And this movie does some very clever things with the whole zombie mythos. There's a few new zombies in this movie. There's a breed of zombie called the Terminator zombie, which is very, very hard to kill. And this movie isn't just a cash grab. It actually does do some clever things. There was some effort put into it, and I thought it was one of the more enjoyable horror efforts of 2019. I would definitely recommend it, and I would put it on almost the same level as the first Zombieland. All right. Unlike my first horror Blu-ray video, I don't feel completely wiped out, and I'm not filming at 1 o'clock in the morning, so I do feel safe here. But guys, thank you so much for joining me in my discussion of all the horror Blu-rays that I purchased recently. And we've done some new things to the background. Like, I was kind of tired of having just a blank white wall, off to the side here. So I did put some stuff over here. We have our logo on the television right here. And of course, Chucky is still on the shelf behind me. And then Russell Scarecrow there, and diligent as ever. But yes, guys, we really look forward to bringing you some more horrific content. This week, actually, we're seeing The New Invisible Man, starring Elizabeth Moss. Very excited to see that. And, as far as the movies that have come out in 2020 so far, it really hasn't been the best year for horror. But, there's some promising titles coming out, and we look forward to talking about those. I do intend on doing more update videos, talking about the Blu-rays that I purchase in the future. But if you like this, please subscribe to our channel, Round the Clock Frights. And as always, have a very scary night. And again, if you have any suggestions on what I should buy in the future, please put them down below. And yeah, have a scary week. No more Rod Serling impressions. I'm done with those.